Okay, greetings. Let's give an honest soil to the Most High, the ancestors known and unknown. Come on, trash can shit. Um, Anywho, it's been a while since I did an episode for I almost forgot the title. Oh my gosh, what is the title? I probably won't know the title. Because I've been doing some things. About the episode about what is it? The father you never had. Oh my gosh, how do I forget the title like that? But anywho, conversations from the father you never had. I just trust I'm saying that correctly. I feel like I am, but you'll know the episode, especially when I do, you'll know the episode. I mean, when I post it, of course. But anywho, coming from a man's perspective of, being more responsible, even in my own journey with the mother and the father wound, but now sharing my message to the women and the mothers and the young ladies that will come into these things, probably either deal with it, trying to navigate through it, and trying to find clarity from it. So, what if I told you that in your decision making, when it comes to men, it's not your fault? I wasn't gonna change shoes, it'd be all right. It's not your fault at all. Now, for those of you that don't have fathers or didn't have fathers, you especially don't need to fault yourself in your poor decision making, or just, I wouldn't even say poor judgment on men. It's more so the guidance that you never had, especially if you didn't have a father there at all, or had other men who preyed on you while you were young because of maybe your physical appearance and so forth. And that's also due to the fact of what their upbringing was as well, and how they view women through a wounded lens and so forth. So, and again, one of the biggest things that stuck out to me is also the vetting process. If you don't know what that is, a lot of us are coming to know the importance of this shit in our mid-30s and 40s, or some people, whatever age that they are. The vetting process, which I honestly feel, not even just feel, that most people should know the importance of, because when you grew up in the world that has been, forcing us to not even just get along with people, but forcing people into our own personal space, into our world, without any type of vetting process, without any type of going through a process of our own terms and conditions in our own world. Meaning, like, there is something within myself that for my own protection, I need to protect myself from, whether that be you. And that's a part of self-worth and self-value, where I'm recognizing, I'll probably just take a seat. What I'm recognizing the importance of now is vetting. I was sitting here in the kitchen after I was eating in the rising. I was like, bro, there's anybody in my past who just assumed that you're not going to go through the vetting process. You out your rabbit ass mind. And the reason why the vetting process is so vital is because when we in relationships, especially women, you tend to have more of an emotional depth more than men. You tend to connect more deeper emotionally than we do, especially in the beginning, where again you didn't know the importance of how when you have these sexual exchanges and so forth, you don't know the consequences, or even the awareness around how giving yourself up so much. So you're bonding with this person on so many different levels. It's not just emotional, but it's spiritual and so forth. So if you never had a father to have such talks with you in regards to things as such that are vital, to your spiritual hygiene, your spiritual well-being, your mental and emotional, physical well-being overall, then you have to ask yourself, well, what have you been subjected to? What have you been subscribing to when it comes to even men? Moving forward, even with that, it's so vital. I was also getting clarity because even myself, like I said, I'm not perfect. I haven't went through things. I had to go through my own shit, learn my own vices, learn how it is I was harming myself and other people involved, and realizing that even through that vetting process, you know what to protect yourself from. So for a lot of you, even in the fact of, you having grace with yourself, this is why I create these episodes and things in relation to the fact of not just being a father, but the father knowing the importance of the vetting process, but also knowing the importance of his inner child. So when you have been in spaces with men, and when you look at the old world and the narrative of the old world, most of them, if not all, when it comes to the collective energy, operate as such, and I'm saying most, and that's from a man perspective, who are unhealed or who don't have a sense of awareness of the inner child, or even some type of divine connection or spiritual connection, I should say, or even emotional balance, are subjected to some type of self-harm and eventually harming those around them. Doesn't matter their career, doesn't matter their status, it doesn't matter none of that shit. If they're not holding you accountable, because we hold father and mother energy. I did not get to this place without realizing the aspect around the father, the mother wound, and navigating through that to see the father wound. Again, the different perspectives of what I did not receive very young from my father, but also my mother. But again, to bring the awareness as a father now, to now share this message, not just to you, but to you, not just as a woman, but to the little girl inside of you. To the little girl inside of you that was never protected, on so many different levels. On so many different levels. To encourage you to go through the vetting process. Shit, even when you start to learn about yourself, you start to realize, like, damn, I was just letting myself go through this. I was just going through all these motions and so forth with no sense of protection. For some of you, my condolences go to some of you who have been subjected to SA and, some type of form of abuse, simply because conversations were never held. Never held. This is to even the family that family that I know, that the second one, I call it the second. A lot of them things that they told me about certain people in the family, it's utterly disgusting, because these are people that are supposed to protect you very young. Now you're out here with no guidance, and then now you're still seeing it happen. And it doesn't have to, because a part of you now, and again, in the vetting process, is a form of your self-worth and self-value. You know what? I can give this man whatever duration I feel like it's not just an emotional safety, it's a spiritual. It has to be on all levels, ladies. It has to be on all levels. You know how people say, as soon as they start talking about that down there, red flag. That should be a red flag. As soon as they start talking about that money, red flag. If the intentions ain't about, when you're talking about growing or prospering or longevity, because once you realize a lot of people, their instabilities are rooted in their insecurities, and the first thing they'll talk about is their money, shows a reflection of the fact of where their value lies, and especially if it ain't related to spiritual currency, things that we're moving towards. What I've learned about myself, which you can't put a price tag on. That's just a process of the fact of what I accumulate or comes in, but that's from an abundance aspect. And that's just coming from learning men, and the men that I know now that are very insecure, no matter their skill set or no matter where they are, what they do. There's still some type of unfulfillment there. And when they're chasing after something, it has a lot to do with, again, there's really not a deep sense of security within self to where you don't have to chase. You'll know when to act through intuition. You'll know when you know that you're secure within yourself. And a lot of this has a lot to do with the fact of, again, ladies, vetting process. You didn't get this information, you didn't get these things, you didn't know these things about men or your father. That he was still, and probably still is, that insecure man who never healed his mother wound, who never cared to have these discussions, or probably will never will. That's the acceptance. Because we have to mother and father ourselves. Take care of ourselves if no one else will. And then align ourselves with like-minded individuals as such. Because who's going to protect you like you? And a lot of you, due to the fact that you didn't have that guidance from a father, because it's much different. I tell you, I see it from the father-daughter thing. When I see my daughter like growing, and I'm talking about, if y'all can see this table, this is her emotions. It's all these different things going on. And y'all know, y'all the same way. It's okay. I ain't gonna judge you. You're still the same little girl. It's just, for some of y'all, it's just what it is. It's no judgment that you didn't have the guidance, whether that be from a mother or father, or a father who, our approach for me is that when I would see a mother would come in and, try to nurture you. So for some of y'all didn't even have that. Then you didn't have the father. Because the father, in the way how we approach it, I'm going to let you go through your emotions, but I'm going to still be in a way, be nurturing and gentle. I had to learn that because I had to learn to be for myself. So when you didn't have a father that know that, and some of y'all didn't even have both. So the empathy and compassion I have for y'all, because I can relate just as a man, but it's a different viewpoint from a little girl and a woman who has to grow into teenage and motherhood and so forth and all those things without that insight and guidance, without that blueprint. Just one little piece of that puzzle affects the foundation of what you have accepted, what you think is normalized, and what you think is okay. And especially if, when you were just prone to just go from relationship to relationship and you had no type of insight or guidance. And then for some of you, again, the conversations never held to actually heal, to sit still, to learn more about you before you step into that. Again, that vetting process is also a form of vetting yourself. Getting to know the parts of you that due to self-harm, you place yourself into harm for other people. Or you harm others along the way. This is just a fact of like the conversations from a father to a daughter, to a mother. Again, I'm speaking to the daughters within y'all, the little girls within y'all that never had these conversations and realized like, damn, I wish my dad would have told me the importance about vetting men. Because imagine if he gave you the insight, the fact of this is how certain men can be. Certain men who don't have a healthy relationship. Because you can hear one thing from your mother, but from your father is different. It sticks with a woman differently. Because that man, even in your relationship, as you're mirroring back mother and father energy. And depending on what structures you have had, you're still mirroring back something, whether it's holistic or through an unhealthy attachment. That's just the reality of what we have came out of and come into. It's no overlooking it. I cannot overlook it. This is why to whom is given, much is required. I'm given the knowledge, so I have to spread it, to apply it. But I also have to apply it in my own life, the wisdom. So I'm not perfect in nothing that I'm doing. It's just the awareness around like the conversations I have to have with my daughter in divine time and to let her know. The real shit of like having her mom and I through interactions where it's not perfect. You argue, you have moments and so forth, things that have not been pretty, and having to really sit with her and tell her, hey, daddy's going through something that you may not understand and overstand. I was going through stuff generationally before I even had you. There were things I wasn't even prepared for. I'm talking about raw, planting seeds of truth and authenticity. Some may say, oh, well, my dad should have, everyone's going to have their perception, but some will agree to be like, well, I wish that I had a dad that did that. Because some of y'all probably would object and be like, I wouldn't tell my dad. Listen, Some of y'all fathers keep these conversations from y'all that should have been held, that have been in your life. And guess what? You'll end up dating or aligning with or attracting a similar energy to that. A man who is very secretive. A man who don't know how to be honest with himself, because he actually developed an identity around that. To think that that's how he most likely has kept your mother or kept other women or keep other women around. Yeah, let's talk about it. Because again, the importance of that vetting process and the significance of that is to a lot of things that could have been prevented. Certain relationships, whether abusive, financially, all these different things, as a man becomes more secure within himself, recognizing the mother wound, how he interacts with his mother, because it's much different. With me, I realized through my healing of that, my distance with my mother plays a significant role in the fact of that being the root of how I viewed relationships with women. So again, it's very important, if you have a father and what he went through his experience with his mother or the women that were matriarchal figures in his life. It shows a part of in his inability to connect emotionally, and more so also in a nurturing way, how he will nurture and interact with you. Therefore, in his exchange with you, it's significant to what you visually receive, verbally receive, and then this will be a direct guidance and a bridge to what and how you receive men, how you exchange. And that exchange, for some of y'all, has only been through sex. That is, unrequited. For some of y'all, it's just even unrequited in ways to where financially, where you have to be more the caretaker and so forth. I say this because as a man, and then even as a father, I've been in experiences with women, to where I had to recognize, like, wow, even the significance of a father not being there for me, it represented a lot of structure. Now, the mother is a part of structure too, but again, there's ways where a mother implements things. Her protection is much different than a father's. So for a lot of you, a lot of your protection was not, when we look at the fact of how a father does things, there's a different way to where, again, my talks with my daughter, and also reminding her, like, the things I went through. I'm also, at that moment, the version that I was, this is not the type of man that you have to and will be in your life. Has to or will be in your life. That's raw. Because I realized, as I was navigating through shit, whether a mother wound and so forth, that even the fact that I didn't want to see, but now I became more aware of, I still have to let her know, like, no, this is not the me. No. I am not a reflect. No, we were not. And then so, with that being said, now it's the awareness around the beauty of reminding her, you don't have to. It's your free will, but at the same moment, there's something divinely within you that I know, as I plant this seed, you'll know through experiences in life, oh, I remember my father saying this, or just that energy, that seed planted. Because I was always remind her, instilling her, your well-being is vital. Protect your peace. These are things that is very vital to hear and to be poured in as a child, to prevent those very things from happening when we grow up, and then knowing the difference of discernment. But when we don't have people who have been so, like a father that's disconnected from those very things, whether that's empathy, emotion, and so forth, then his discernment, he's most likely not going to care. Because sometimes if he's holding on to a mother wound, he's not going to care at all about what you deal with and how you deal with other men. He's not even going to know how to handle. He's going to most likely, due to his inability of connecting emotionally, be conflict avoiding. There's no conflict resolution. There's no, passive aggressive towards your emotions, to how you feel and so forth. So that's why you can see some of you, like, sometimes depending on your demographics, the first thing a father would do for some of y'all, they don't even know how to respond to it. They don't even know what to do. They don't care enough. And for some of them, the first thing they'll do is what's normalized to them is to probably be violent or do something that could put them right back in a position where if they've been in prison or jail before, you know, they don't want to involve themselves. So now this has left you with this hyper independence to where you not having structure, now you're all over the place, scattered. And that's a part of what the father is, you know, brings that structure and balance to where, yeah, your emotions can be all over the place, but he brings in this, you know, okay, after your emotions, after you get through this, you still have to breathe. There's still consequences. There's still things. Honor your emotions. I get it. And that's simply because I get it to where that I gradually learned this as I became, as facing the mother wound, I gradually started to realize like, okay, I have emotions too. So I can relate to her, but even though my emotions are not as big, I can still relate that at a point in time where my emotions were big. So it's a way of like, as a father, you're connecting to a daughter to realize like, there is no separation, you know, in the fact of how, oh, you have emotions too. It's the relatability. It's how I can connect. And so a lot of men who have that disconnect aren't able to do that because they were either never shown. And a lot of why I tell y'all why the mother is significant is because she is his first demonstration on how he should navigate, you know, his emotions, how he should be nurtured and so forth. You it's almost like a byproduct of that, or stepping in when a lot of men aren't ready, when a lot of fathers were never ready because they never stabilized themselves emotionally, so they really have never been ready for another motherly energy to come in. And then most of the time, if they're not healthy women or women that have been honest with themselves, most of the time you're just karmically going through shit. You're just in the experience, you know, and that's how some of y'all have gotten here. Your mother and father met, and it was more so of something karmic. It wasn't an intention of longevity. It was on some hit and run. For some of you, my empathy goes out for some of you, because some of you are babies that your mother never told you about, that you were, you know, through sexual abuse or sexual assault, something to where it's so many different ways you can look at this that people never question. The fact of, was it a one-night stand? You know, all these different things that you have to realize, even in that, it's the energy that you coming in. And a lot of them mothers and fathers feel, they don't even address this. They don't tell the truth about it. Depending on if that mother has a father wound, she left you with the father wound, because as she met your father, now, again, things that were never talked about, things that were never discussed, things that are unresolved, things that are still on the fucking table, that were people just got up and left, but never talked about. People, you got so many mothers and fathers who never departed in ways that were in an agreement of, for the betterment, not just for themselves, but for the children. They just went about their ways, but they still have this emotional connection. They still have certain things where they don't know how to navigate through it, so they'll jump right into something again, as you were shown. So you see a lot of y'all parents and fathers, they doing the same pattern that you're doing, or the fact of you learn from, which they normalize and think it was okay, but in reality, it's still things that are unresolved. It's still things that they're ignoring. And so this is why, in their ignorance, the things that they ignore, it's still the same way how they connect with you. And that's why a lot of them go to, like, you know, for some of y'all fathers, you don't hear from them because no one ever told them how to sit with their shit. And then a lot of them now, later on in their elder years, either repeating the same pattern or just cover up things and act like nothing has ever happened. Pretending like nothing went on and everything is okay when it's not okay. So it's wild, man. Like I said, even the vetting process now, the importance of when something happens to you, whether you went through some type of harm or whether you went through some type of abuse, you know, should be a duration. Even with the father, like if you have kids, even with the father of your kids, so many different things. It's just people never guided how to go about these things. They never were guided how to go about it in a holistic way. When you end something with someone, and then they're involved kids, you don't know the healthy way or the healthy outlet to do it. So sometimes you're still holding on to emotions, anger, resentment, and a lot of that is the fact of it's just a disguised way of you not knowing how to navigate it. So sometimes you project it onto the child's father, and so forth, in ways to where you just never knew how to. You probably saw your mama do it. You just never knew how to navigate through it in a healthy way. So now there's this more resentment of what you've experienced with men, which really is rooted in the father wound. Conversations that were never held, things that were kept away from you. So now your repeated pattern in this, you're blaming the man, or for some of y'all who never knew how to take accountability, blaming him, and there's a deeper rooted cause in these things. That it's layered. It's so layered. Like, we'll look at the man, but we won't look at the fact of, well, what about me? What did my father teach me about certain men like this? And I'm telling you from learning experience, from interacting, from personally dealing with someone one-on-one with kids, women with kids, my own kids, and so forth. Recognizing things on a deeper level with the mother of my kids. My mother wound, her father wound. You know, learning things that you think you can ignore. No. Because if I don't tell y'all the real and raw shit, it's just like, how will I be able to have these conversations with my daughter? I can't force her mother to do certain things or whatever it is. That's something she has to do the inner work for. To actually feel called to do those things. That's in her timing. The beauty of it is that, again, this being a conversation from the father, is the things about you no longer having to feel isolated or isolate yourself from a true love or honesty, you know, an honest and authentic way of experiencing love, which first begins with yourself. As a father, I've told my daughter, your first and last love is with you. I will not instill in my daughter about the whole concept of this false romanticized idea of love. No. I don't even like her to watch those fucking Disney movies and shit like that. Because a lot of y'all have been force-fed stuff to be so overly romanticized and so open to pain, to be exposed, to be taken advantage of. When y'all look at a lot of these movies, when y'all look at a lot of these things, a lot of this stuff is literally embedded in your mind, pouring into you to be open and exposed and not protect and not vet yourself with other people. It's not a way. Again, it was very clever how the powers that used to be used this against you as mothers and women and so forth. Because think about even the fact that even if you watch all this over, you know, the princesses and all this other shit, she has to fall in love with a man and she's head over heels and so forth. And notice how it stops there. They don't tell you the other shit that goes on. They leave you with that. They leave you with the, oh, you just going to stuff, but not realize that's a backstory to people. That's shit that comes with people. Something that, again, I tell my, baby, you don't need my approval. You may come to me for reassurance. That's natural, because that's human nature. Reciprocation, reassurance, certain things. But at the same moment, I'm going to let you know, As you see your daddy progress and become who he is, you will know the importance of seeing the process of how men navigate through things. Y'all didn't grow up with that. And for some of y'all that didn't have a father, you didn't have that physical presence there. Because with that physical presence there, there's an emotional presence. There's a spiritual presence and so forth. That show you see through a lens, you see through interaction, you see through nurturing and so forth. So again, that's what I was all gonna get into. This is why, again, why in your choice in men, for the ones you start to realize, like for some of you, you didn't even realize, like you didn't know how to choose the one who knew how to protect you. Gosh. And I don't just mean getting caught up in the finances and how he can provide physical shelter. I'm talking about the fact of, like I always told you, in learning my mother wound and navigate through this shit, the divine said, nah, in mothering yourself, that means you know how to protect yourself on an emotional level. From the women, from the people who are overly kind and passive aggressive. You know how to protect yourself from these people now. Because in you knowing that, you won't be a harm not only to yourself anymore, but to others. So a lot of you didn't have that importance of that. The importance of that, man. Whew. Man, I'm trying, bro. Y'all didn't. So for again, the fathers even having that awareness of certain things as such, the depths of that. That mother wound, that father wound, knowing realizing now how getting to know me more deeper emotionally is that part of what protects me. So for a lot of you not having that, you would have never known, you didn't have a blueprint how to even choose men. And a lot of you unconsciously chose men through the fact of you not even having the guidance or structure in how to do it. It's not your fault. It's not your fault. Even if you did have kids by someone, even if you did end up in a marriage and so forth, that was unrequited and so forth. Okay, now that you saw this video, you're aware now that all of this, you realize the importance of the little girl was never protected. So that's how significant a father can be in conversations as such. It's to know, like, hey, you didn't know this. And for some of your fathers, in their inability not to be protected emotionally and had to be responsible early on, for themselves and so forth, what a lot of them end up growing up doing is they were never ready to be responsible for you. This is why they're so irresponsible when it comes to your interaction, because they were never taught how to be responsible for themselves. So they can go out here and make money, and on the surface they look like they're responsible. Yeah, they're responsible in that sector. That's cool and all. That's valuable. But on a deeper level, how to connect with you as a daughter, you being a mother now, that's something, longevity, you still seek and search for, because it's an emotional thing. It's also a deeper spiritual thing. So again, a lot of you still, I see little girls, I see women out here and so forth. Like when I see like women who are prostitutes and so forth, I automatically realized like there was somebody that never instilled in them their self-worth. Never instilled in them their self-worth. And not to mention, they're probably reenacting or acting out something that probably affected them very young. So in their mind, the mental disorder in that is a part of their life. That is their world. For some of y'all in your world, again, when men did not get the proper guidance young as a father, he's not going to know how to, naturally when a father even is not there, a part of that reassurance that you get in structure as a little girl is a part of the fact of, your image. Not even just, and again, The mother is more so like the inner image, like the security, the intuition. The father, to me, the perspective of the energy is the structure, how he presents himself, how he operates from the feminine to the masculine. So that's where a lot of the discipline. Mother's discipline, but father's discipline in a way to where it's like the structure and how your image is. How your image is to yourself, your inner image, but also your outer image you portray to people. So when you don't have no type of structure or balance in that, you're not going to know how to be selective when it comes to men. So for a lot of you, again, subconsciously, you would program or assume that this is how life is supposed to be and so forth, even going through suffering and so forth. So you were already prepared to, even without having that structure in place, or a father that was in tune with himself, you are already going to prepare yourself for these men who are going to take advantage, who most likely have a mother wound, who most likely don't know the importance of structure. So again, they can hide behind their image and what they present on the surface, but deep down within them, their inner image lacks confidence and security and so forth. So what's going to end up happening, because emotions are a gateway to you evolving, they can't hide that anymore. So eventually, as things start to shift within us and outwardly in the world, it's going to bring up things unresolved with a mother or matriarchal figure. It's going to bring up things repressed and so forth through their career settings and so forth. This is why, again, through a man's inability to acknowledge what's going on within him and his inner world, it eventually is he's going to have to purge it, or he's just going to simply be toxic for everyone else around him. His action eventually is going to affect everything and everyone around him. So it doesn't matter what he has built or where he thinks that he's going through a healthier pattern by moving on to another family and building on and so forth. Don't be fooled by that. I know a lot of that, y'all feel plagued or feel hurt by the fact of how your fathers have moved on for that, and never even, for a lot of them, had conversations with your mother or with you and so forth. Again, a lot of unresolved things that reflect their belief systems that is rooted in their mother wound. That's why a lot of these conversations they will never have. That's why they'll wait until their old age or when they dying off or something and apologize and say, I love you and so forth. That's why I even get so much slack and judgment from, at a time, a person's father or fathers who will feel like somebody isn't worthy of their daughter. But I start to, again, recognize the fact that a lot of y'all fathers and a lot of these men are still a part of enmeshment connections subconsciously with their mothers, or emotionally incessive with their mothers. Meaning, like, you'll just see the weird and awkwardness around the competitiveness with their mother and even with you as a daughter. This is why some of y'all don't even recognize the fact of there's a battle, almost competition with the fact of when a mother, that's why the mother and your father is so significant, is because, your father and mother dynamic is so significant. It's because if there's nothing really healthy in a deep emotional connection there, most likely you're dealing with a man who is and has been smothered to where she's not going to feel that he's worthy of even a daughter. That's why there'll be an underlying jealousy. For some of y'all don't even know y'all deal with this. There'll be an underlying jealousy, or too much of interacting with you, or too much of anything. And typically this is probably how certain relationships happen with your mother and father. For some of y'all, why your certain things, what they call mother-in-law, a lot of these people, man, this thing goes so deep. I'm just channeling and picking up on the possibility of the fact of, like, why a lot of you didn't have a lot of these conversations when it comes to, having a healthier dynamic with your father. So a lot of these things can be exposed so you can realize, like, there's something internally. People have internal conflicts going on. Like I said, I had things internally going on, but it was highlighted so deeply when I met the mother of my children. When I met her, things were so, like, things that I didn't even know about. Things that I realized that when you co-create with someone, this is an initiation into a whole nother realm of what, on a deeper level ancestrally. You yourself, ancestrally carry certain things, but there's a deeper thing when you have children. When you realize now, it's just as much as your mother and father was a bridge to you, now you a bridge for generations that coming after you. There is a much more responsibility to that. A lot of men don't have this awareness on that. And a lot of the mothers that they dealt with didn't have this awareness. And then a lot of their mothers and, the grandparents don't have awareness on this. So a lot of y'all dealing with people who, for one, didn't have a lot of guidance on being, know how to protect themselves spiritually, mentally, and emotionally, but on so many different levels to where people just assume that everyone had it all together, or you just assume that your father is not dealing with something. He already had to deal with the fact of, let's say, whatever your mother had going on, because, some of them don't know the backstory, wanted to work things out. But sometimes some people they're not ready. And a lot of them were never ready. There's an emotional responsibility to a child. There's so much more deeper things that come with raising and growing a child, especially a daughter. There's more things that you have to be patient with and have emotional empathy. Because certain things I had to learn, as I learned my mother wound, boy, I had to learn deeper emotional empathy for myself and my daughter and her mother. You gotta really be an empathetic ass person for yourself, like emotional empathy, because it teaches you that you put yourself there, but without losing yourself. So I've learned that through the fact of, this is why you can see how certain relationships with a lot of your father, from your father perspective, for some of y'all, why they don't pan out with your mother. Because if that woman's not emotionally stable, most likely it's not going to be a healthy balance. Because they're going to have to balance or reciprocate certain things. And if she's already dealing with certain things that she unaware of, whether a mother wound or a father wound, a lot of these conversations were never held. That doesn't mean that people didn't try. There are stories that are untold that certain men they had to move on, and they had to move on silently because, that's all they could do. To prevent from ending up in a jail, prison, it's so many different things that we don't look to the depths of, that people have to deal with. Me personally, I'm not going to go into depths, but I know the things I've had to deal with, the backstory of certain people and their families and so on, I won't ever go through again. Ever, because I made that choice. I had to go through it to see my self-worth and my value, and also to recognize the deep vices, spiritual warfare, internal conflicts, things that go on that are hidden within people's family. And again, when you co-create with someone, especially being a father, you have to realize everything that was hidden, because that child, you as a daughter of someone, that child comes in as an energy that has never been tainted, that has never been touched. That doesn't mean you still don't carry things intergenerationally, but that shift, that is a shift. Just like it's divine intervention. Just like when a life leaves, it shifts the perspective. It reminds people, if they're aware, that it's all temporary. Just like when a life comes into this world, as things go in, they go out. So when a life comes in, it's to remind us of the cycle of life. Everybody don't have that mindset towards life. They don't see the beauty. And a lot of you don't realize in people's inability to be ready for a lot of children and so forth, depending on your demographics, depending on whether your mother and father was ready financially, mentally, emotionally, on so many different levels. That right there, again, could feel burdensome for a lot of people. That right there can feel like, they can only surrender, and for some, they give up. Because they so used to a pattern of people giving up on them. I know that feeling. But I'm so grateful that I've learned how to master and navigate my own emotions, and learning through this experience that to take it as a grain of salt, and realize, like, through these exchanges and conversations, you see the bigger picture, to connect to people and connect other people to different worlds, and realize, like, listen, you don't know what that person going through. You don't know what they went through. Sometimes you as a child or daughter can come in and be that divine retribution, or, you know, for your lineage. And again, with people assuming that you're not something that's supposed to be cherished and treated respectfully and with honor. Yeah. Again, you don't know what hidden emotions and unresolved things as you come in karmically, because some of y'all could come in as people to bring balance back into your lineage. And a lot of them drop the ball on that. And so with that, a lot of you that do have kids, you still have a responsibility to yourself and your kids. So I share these messages because that's a part of where I'm coming from as a father. I realized in my father, the man that co-created, the dad or whatever, recognizing the fact of honoring even the vetting process with a lot of these people. Because I realized in my healing or in my navigating and bringing balance to my life, like, it's just certain people I don't want access or have access to me. And that's very important. Like, again, like, if I instill into my daughter, like, and I had to tell her mother, it's like, it's important. Because we grew up in patterns where we just think, like, we just supposed to accept people in because they're family and this and that. Like, again, y'all don't know the depths of what being that so many things have been in the favor of women who have been wounded, who see men through a wounded lens, a society that has outcasted men to just be alone and go through things alone. A lot of your fathers had to go through things alone and still are. No one's there to nurture them. I'm not saying it's the blame or pointing the finger, but it's much different from a father perspective. There's not a lot of people that, when you look at the world and how it's been, that's not, when you don't have empathetic women or women collectively, I'm talking about a large amount, that care for the well-being of themselves, which most likely is going to reflect the well-being of the men in their life. It's the same with me. As a man, I have to be very aware of the women that I have in my life. I have to be very aware of the fact of the people that I allow in my life, in my presence, around me, and so forth, because what's connected to me. A lot of men didn't have that awareness. And then when you're dealing with, let's say, some type of your mothers and so forth, some of them didn't care. They didn't care what type of women or men were around them. Certain things happen. They still allow other people around when your father or somebody could have been like, no, that's not okay. We're not going to do that. You know what I'm saying? It's so many different things y'all got to realize. Like, when you're merging worlds with a child, that means, like, this child now has intergenerational things, experiences from both parties, from both people, from both lineages, not to mention things spiritually and ancestrally. It's deeper. It's not to be just, you know, we just look at this shit on the surface level. It's much deeper. Dang, they only came out for like 6 minutes or something? What the heck? But anywho, I'm near a school looking at these kids, but it's interesting. They might have been doing a head count or something. But anywho, yeah. And the reason I make these videos and conversations from a father is because it's also to bring y'all into a world of a man and a father and a little boy that has a protected self that wasn't protected. So y'all got to realize, like, a lot of these men grew up who are fathers who were never protected on a spiritual, emotional, and mental level. So a lot of them are very much almost like fearful or scared of the mothers because of even the systems in place. We know that, the courts and all these other shits. which would literally corrupt it and set up because they want you as mothers to be single and not have a man around. Y'all don't realize how deep this is, that where a lot of fathers, y'all don't be knowing their perspectives. Y'all don't get their perspectives. You don't get their side of the story. You never probably gotten it. And because of, you just never know how, again, the distorted mother, the wounded mother, the energy of that has been running the show for so long, not anymore, but that energy of the distortion mother, how people have, through wounded masculinity being displayed, have manipulated storylines and so forth for men who have been falsely accused, for men who have been subjected to, things that are not true and are not authentic. But the systems that have been in place that supported the distortion of the matriarchal and the patriarchal. So with that, how are we surprised that what happens? And that's the thing that's been restored. I almost, as a father, I wrote in my book about that. Like how it's real and raw, where I know men who, before I get to me, men who would never ever deal with certain women again because of the fact of how wounded they don't know themselves to be. And it goes for men and women, but still, the women who don't know how wounded they are, and literally put men, or by word of mouth, or say certain things that could jeopardize their whole future, that can put them, false accusations and so forth, put them in a position where they now are subjected to incarceration or something like that and so forth, which they don't realize, like, in their inability to face what's going on within them, not only are they harming themselves, but how it affects the children. And so now here you are now in a system, in a loop, which was designed that way to make sure you don't have a man present at all. And a lot of this is important because the father aspect of all of this is that this is why they don't want a father to be present for a lot of women that don't like, because his presence in itself, and this is not about men being perfect, but just his presence alone won't make you subjected to being preyed upon. Now that's a whole, I didn't even want to do this in this video because I wanted to talk about it, but that's the thing about what the father wound even exposes. The father wound in itself, when you have these conversations, because we all want to be in love, true love, and all like this, but we don't realize the importance of being it for ourselves. So when we have been in dynamics karmically, as men and so forth, having to learn our lesson, but then you have some men who don't know anything other than that, so they continue to go through these loops and cycles of women and so forth that you know nothing about, that they're trying their best to get away from, and they want to get away from. But then you have corrupted systems in place, such as a child support, that keeps them binded to the woman. Because sometimes, it's not all, but most of those systems, and y'all seeing all these stories come out to where, for one, a lot of kids are not even theirs. A lot of things where men, if they don't pay certain stuff, they get locked up. And it's like, it's so much treatment around to, like, it's dehumanization, it's devaluing. It makes men just be looked at as a father, not more so what the father represents in a healthy way, but just subjected to, again, like a byproduct, or just something like, oh, he's just there for money. If he's not able to do all this, at least I can get his money. Like, y'all actually think that this shit is okay? Not giving a man an opportunity to do certain things. And I get it, from certain situations it's different. But we know that there's other storylines that where some of y'all mothers and so forth are in positions where they have abused their motherhood. They have abused their power. And again, I always remind people, no one is exempt from karma. It all What my elder tell me? It may not come out in the wash, but it always comes out in the rinse, baby. I'm gonna let y'all know that. I'm just stretching. It may not come out in the wash, but it will come out in the rinse. And one thing I tell you about that boy, that shit is so true. If you know, you know. It may not come out now, but eventually it will. And that's the beauty of, again, so many fathers that, again, I tell y'all about these conversations is because it's just a balanced way of letting y'all know, like, a lot of your father's choices and actions were not just the fact of it being, they had to do what they had to do because to protect themselves. And for some of them, even in the situation that they're in, is a form of divine protection. Some that were in prison, some that had to walk away, some that had to move on because it's something within them, most likely, that you didn't want to. It's not so much we know you as a daughter, that cares and love, and you want that connection, but everybody don't know the depths of the fact of, the type of foundation, the mother, and what is behind her, who's supporting her. It's so many different things that people ignore and overlook. It's so many different things that y'all don't know, that how men process stuff, how we navigate through stuff, prolonged grief, having to be away from your child. Don't ever think that for some men that they don't ever ponder on these things when it comes to that. I gotta turn around the other way. When it comes to that. Because you have so many men that want to be a part of their children's life. But y'all don't know what type of women, and y'all will come to know. Y'all come to know what type of mothers. Because again, a lot of people have been operating in distortion. They actually been thinking these systems in place have supported their well-being and them being healthy and so forth. People will come to know, like, the things are changing. The energy is being exposed around the distortion. The unhealthy attachments, how women want to keep men unhealthily attached to them through a child support system. Any way that I can feel like I can disrupt his life and so forth. So you have to start, like, it's two sides to a coin. Some conversations your father want to have, but they were blocked from it. Then you later in life, now you can have that process to begin to heal. Because, again, some people didn't want your father to let you know the parts of your story. Well, his story and so forth, because they knew that it would change the whole narrative. Like I said, that's a whole nother topic. But it's real and raw. So I'm going to let y'all have this episode right now. Y'all take care of yourself. Peace and business. Shalom.